Hi, our guest today is Susan Edmonds, Director of the Milford Town Library. Sue, welcome.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to see the both of you.
Oh, wow, that was nice.
So I think the last time you were here, the library was celebrating its 30th anniversary and was part of the Celebrate Milford event. What's going on at the library since then?
We've been doing a lot of training for English as second language. We started that back up in early September, and we average about 20 people per session. We have 2 beginner classes on Monday, and we have an intermediate class on Tuesdays at 7, and we also offer citizenship classes on Thursday nights.
Wow.
And that's through Catholic Charities. They provide the instructor. They also provide all the books and materials. They take care of all of that, and we provide the space, and they're able to get ready for their citizenship tests.
Do you see a lot of people going through that each year?
Yes, we're seeing a lot more. We average, let's say, every Thursday night about 10 to 15 people.
Wow.
Some people are there for numerous classes, some drop in for one class, or they get the paperwork, know exactly what they need to get their citizenship, or other people will stay for a couple of months just to get, ready for it.
That's not offered anywhere else in Milford, is it?
No, we're the only people that do offer it, and that's what I like about the Milford Town Library. We offer things to people where they may not be able to get it someplace else. We give them a start. We show them what they can do, they can't do, and then from there they make the decision where they want to go next.
Okay. That also includes things like free internet and Wi-Fi and
all the usual that every library offers right now: free internet and free Wi-Fi hotspot. We also we do more with ebooks. It's going slowly. Last year we may have had maybe 4,000 to 5,000 circulations of our ebooks, which are through the CW Marist Library Network,
Right.
Overdrive. And also the state provides more ebook collections, and that's known as the E-Commonwealth Collection. And again, those are 4 or 5 different vendors that have a state contract. Okay. And what you do, you go over to our website and you look for the ebook collection, and it shows you how to download those apps so you can use those books.
Okay, and what's the percentage? Is the electronic reading growing more over, people reading print?
Yeah, every year about July, we do something for the state called the Errors Report. And what that does, it sort of gives a snapshot of what happened the previous year. And every year it grows. Like for fiscal 16, it was only about 5,000. For this last time, we had nearly 7,000 circulations.
On ebooks?
On ebooks.
And what's the overall circulation of print books?
We had about 175,000 items go out.
Is that number growing or shrinking?
It's about the same. I mean, what has happened is that the DVD collection has grown. We have more circulations there. We have more circulations on the audiobooks. And combined with the other digital materials that are offered, we do close to 200,000 circulations. Okay. And that's not bad for a group that's only, 27,000 people.
We keep hearing, though, that print is going away and electronics is it.
Oh, we even hear that the newspapers are going away.
But basically, you still see a healthy balance of print.
We will, and I think for a long time, again, when I've come on previously, I've mentioned that sometimes it's cheaper to have a book than it is to do a digital database or do a DVD or something like that, because, again, they're still wrestling with copyright and rights and user rights. A book we used to buy, and you could get maybe 100 circulations out of it before you need to replace it. Now they're looking at, I have this digital copy, how many circulations is the publisher going to allow before they say you need a second digital copy?
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, they actually restrict it, where I know
Yeah.
if I buy something for myself, I was surprised to find out I don't actually own it. I'm renting it, even though I paid for it. And when I go away, the rights to it go away.
Well, it's like Napster.
Right, but the publishers may say you can only read this 4 times, and then you have to buy another digital copy.
Interesting. How are you going to know how many times you read it? And based on the way technology
Because
is
the way
today,
it's downloaded.
well, based on technology, somebody's gonna come up with a workaround so you can have a copy
Wow.
of it that's readable forever.
There is code in these digital books that say, okay, you have a 2-week loan. If you think, oh, I want to read it for another 2 weeks, it stops. You
No,
cannot read
I've
it.
tried,
Yeah.
as you know, you helped me learn how to do it. I've tried downloading books, and if it says you have it for 2 weeks, at 2
That's
weeks,
it.
it's gone off my device. It just disappears.
Well, there probably is a workaround. There's probably a way to beat the system, and someone will figure that out, just like they did on music and everything else. So we're going to have a whole nother set of copyright issues and publishing issues.
Well, with any new technology, and I know digital materials have been around, let's say, for the last 10 years, there's always something that crops up, and you have to deal with it. And with the library network, there's over 148 libraries in the CWMR's network. And we change our, we all have to borrow the same books. We have a whole catalog that's owned by all of us. And then all of us have to decide how we're going to use that. And all of us also donate into it. So,
Right, with the way the network works is one library might buy a book and another library might not. And you can borrow it from that library.
yes.
Is that a way of spreading the budget around so that you can get a bigger collection statewide?
Yes, it is. We're all into sharing materials like this now. We did it before when it was basically book and other materials, but with the digital, what generally happens is that that whole collection is owned by the entire network. So it comes out of all our budgets. We all commit an X amount of our materials budget to the entire network,
Okay.
which has changed. It's more of a group effort with digital materials.
Okay.
Now, we publish the newspaper online. In other words, I put a copy of it online. Now, the question I have is, do you have anything like that online, where people give you publications, say, here, it's yours?
Well, there are subscription services out there like Zinio and some of the Overdrive magazines were now going to be expiring. We can do that, but it's usually you have to go through a subscription service to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you download it and the same thing. You have it for a week. Afterwards, that's it.
Interesting. Because ours is, I publish it, we put it online, and anybody has access to it anytime they want. It's just much easier that way.
Well, I know with the online magazine service I subscribe to for my iPad, as long as I pay that monthly fee, I could go back
Yep.
for as long as I've been a subscriber, which is about 3 years. The first month I don't pay that fee, everything just disappears.
I belong to newspapers.com for some of the interests I have. And the minute I stop paying that subscription, that's it. All the stuff I've collected is gone. And that's another thing, too. Remember Google Newspapers at all? Where in the beginning, Google did a great big archive of newspapers. They went to the libraries
Right.
and they scanned it and everything. Well, some of those newspapers were bought out by different companies and copyright issues. So it's no longer available on Google because of copyright.
Right.
People said I own the copyright, you can't use it.
Right.
And that was when Google was going to copy every book in the world and make them free.
That was interesting, because some years back I got a call from somebody out that wanted us to give them the subscription or give them the newspaper online, and I just never got around to it. But we publish it online now. I think I have three or four years of newspapers right online.
Right.
But it's still in its infancy in a lot of ways. People don't know how they're going to make their money because they're not doing it in paper anymore. How are they going to make the money? And how are they going to control the digital content?
Well, it's interesting because that's been a question that lots of people have asked for a long time on the web about specifically publishing information. How do they can't monetize that? It's very difficult. So if you want a subscription to a magazine or something like that, you pay. And what happened was when the internet first came out, they did it for free. And then they decided that wasn't working, or that wasn't very good, so they decided to start charging. Well, people got used to free, and now they're upset that they didn't get free, and so they didn't resubscribe.
Well, that's where the library comes in because we pay all those service fees and
Right.
the databases. So it is free information for you.
Right.
So that's where a lot of our budget's been shifting. I spend $20,000 a year right now on databases. And that money, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, would have been in books and magazines. I
Right.
still spend a lot on magazines, but it's dwindling.
Because they're going
They're
electronic.
going
They're going
electronic or they're
digital.
ceasing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of them, and the reason why is because advertising is dropping off. A lot of people are not advertising in the magazines, which is, it's expensive.
Well, we hit every new technology that comes out there. I think all libraries have to grasp it, how you provide service and make sure everybody at every level gets that service.
Well, it's interesting, the comment that you hear from a lot of people now, the thing that everybody's talking about is that libraries are going away. Everybody says libraries are going away.
But they're not.
And the same with newspapers are going away, which is not the case either. It's just the model has changed. The kind of newspaper that people get is different. They read it different, and it's a different kind of newspaper. Same with libraries. Libraries are modifying the way they deliver services to people, but the library is still a needed.
We host about 1,200 meetings a year of various capacities. And the Friends, they do a great job. They have 4 or 5 different, programs in the spring and the fall. So they do about 10 programs a year. Their book sales coming up October 28th and 29th. And that usually brings in several $1,000s, which we use towards museum passes. So there's still a lot of people out there that like the feel of the book. We see people still come in the children's department, sit down and read a book. And they're still not comfortable with an iPad or whatever, even though it's an integral part of our lives.
I think it's just a little bit different, though, from sitting down and reading your child a book to actually holding a book in your hands as opposed to reading off your smartphone or a tablet. It just doesn't have the same feel, even though the technology is
Well,
there.
that will change as time. You grew up with that, so that was something that was ingrained at a young age. Kids today, have a whole different feel for.
I do know my 2 boys that live at home with me, they download books to read or buy them as ebooks as opposed to getting hard copy. But for them, it's actually a question of they don't want to throw away something physical when they're done with it.
And
Or have a giant box of books to give away 10 years from now. They'd rather have it on a tablet, and it takes up less physical space
Yeah,
to
but you
them.
still got to pay a fee.
They do pay the fee.
For the content. You may 10 years want to read that book again, you have to rebuy it, or you've spent all that money on a subscription to keep that content.
Well, you don't have the library, personal library aspect of it when you do it on your iPad.
Yeah.
So you lose that. You can't. So it's no longer a reference book.
And I personally prefer the ambiance of going into a physical building, talking to some people, looking around, seeing who's there, talking to the people on staff, taking out your book, and making a connection, as opposed to hitting a button and a bunch of bits fly through the air and I get the book.
Well, that's an issue of age. I mean, look at kids today. A lot of kids only communicate on their iPhones with texting. They text in sentences. They don't the eye-to-eye contact, that facial recognition that is beginning to be lost.
Well, we all know that basically you look around in any restaurant today and everybody's sitting there on their smartphone instead of talking to each other.
But I still feel the library is important to the younger ones as well, because they do come in, and you go to Girl Scouts and things like that. They do come to the toddler times, which we have on Tuesdays, or Art with Heart, which is a book and an art project afterwards on Wednesdays. And they do get that FaceTime, and I think the parents feel that FaceTime is important. I mean, we all love technology, but we're humans, and we need that interaction with people.
Without question. And a library may be the last bastion of where that occurs, aside from school, obviously. Yeah. But that may be the last bastion which continues that experience of face-to-face conversation and dialogue.
We're social creatures, so I think people like to come in someplace where they feel welcomed, they're going to see a friendly face, and I think also if they have a successful trip, if they find what they want in the library, it makes them want to come back more and say something to their friends.
Or something they didn't expect to find. I mean, one of the things I like in going to the library is I may say, I'm going to pick up this book, or I'm going to look for a specific book, but I'll browse the stacks and say, I never read that one. And it's nice to come out with something you didn't. But my comment on the technology is I've been saying this for years, is, Bill Gates, who founded Microsoft, his Gates Foundation, they're spending a lot of money on promoting modern libraries. And I figured if he says modern libraries are going to exist and continue to exist, who might argue with a technology genius?
Well, I really believe that's one of the things we can't lose, that face-to-face conversation, that dialogue, that interaction, because I've tried to explain this to people, that you can write anything you want on an email, and each guy that reads it's going to interpret it differently.
Oh, absolutely.
And some people might get a kick out of it, some might be upset, some people be mad. And so the written word does not convey the information that the spoken word carries.
There was a thing I saw on Facebook the other day that I reposted that said, remember how the Egyptians used hieroglyphics, the way we're going with using emojis in texting?
Yeah.
We might be reverting to a hieroglyphic writing style in 100 years.
Well, the prime an example, which we just saw a few minutes ago, is a high school kid didn't know what polio was.
Correct.
Now, what that means is that where the history and what was gone in the past is not being carried forward.
Some ways yes and some ways no. It just depends on what information you're seeking. If he had to do a project on polio, or someone did that, we would be able to show him where to look, either in digital format or in a book, or guide him to Jonas Salk.
Right, no, but,
Yeah.
and I say the library is the only place where it's always the repository of history.
And another thing that's cropping up a lot more schools are using it, in Milford's doing as well, is Google Classroom. We're having a lot of people coming in saying, I have to do a project, I need to print off my Google Drive. And that's how the teachers interact with school homework now too. And we've had to adapt that way too, to understand how Google Drives work. How do you do it with Google Mail? And it also challenges us as well to help provide these kids, because some of these kids don't have computers at home.
So you're actually challenged to provide a new service that 10 or 20 years ago a library wouldn't have dreamed of.
No, that's what.
But I also remember having a newspaper editor tell me 30 years ago, nobody's ever going to tuck a computer tube under their arm and read a newspaper on it on the bus. They didn't forecast tablets. And today, what do you see on buses and trains? Everybody's got their laptop or their tablet, and they're reading or doing email or whatever. But this guy never saw it, and that's the old joke about why did the buggy whip companies go away? Because they were buggy whip companies, not transportation companies.
Well, the good thing about Milford Town Library is that we do adapt, we do change, and we have been providing great service to everybody that walks through that door.
Right.
Well, for instance, you doubled or tripled the amount of outlets and Wi-Fi capacity within the last 2 years, because that's what people were doing.
It's funny that by adding more plugs, that's improving service. And a lot of it was because the laptops are being used more. We can handle around 40 people per day
On Wi-Fi.
on Wi-Fi. We can do
At one
more.
time.
At one time, yeah.
So not 40 per day, but 40 at a time.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean,
Which 10 years ago you would not think of a library providing, but any store today has to provide that, any service store.
I haven't spent the money expanding the local area network. I have a finite number of workstations, and I said, I'm going to spend my time worrying about Wi-Fi
Because
and
that's what
outlets.
people bring in.
Yeah.
well, the other thing too is that remember when you first went to high school, the very first thing you went to do is you went down to the library, and the librarian taught you how to go through the files and the Dewey Decimal System.
We still do that, but now we do it a little bit differently.
Yeah. So it really was a place where you could have a thought, an idea, and then research that idea and get all the history behind it. And no place else is that available to get accurate information than the library.
Right, I always joke and tell people, hey guys, if I write for Wikipedia, how accurate is it?
Right.
I have a friend who's personally written about 24 pieces on Wikipedia for jazz musicians that he follows. Now, I happen to know him. I've known him for 30 years. He's a very accurate writer, but it's like the joke where you have the photo of Abraham Lincoln saying, don't trust everything you read on the internet. because you don't know the background of things you read on the internet, but if you go to a library, it's quote-unquote authoritative.
Well, that's interesting. This is a side note, that you talk about Abraham Lincoln. There are a lot of very stoic pictures of Abraham Lincoln. Turns out that that's not his body. A photographer took the head and put it on the body of a past president because it looked much more dignified. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, amazing. So they even did that kind of stuff years ago.
Well, all I know is if you read your history, he was a tremendous joker. When he did real debates, not like we do today, but they actually would talk
Debated.
to each other and
Right.
call each other names, he would go from town to town and tell very ribald jokes to the audiences in taverns to get their attention. And was a very funny person, not the dour, stiff people history think he was.
And he didn't grow up as a pauper, but that's a whole nother story. But you know, when you think about it, these are all things that kids today need to be exposed to and are exposed to, but in a totally different manner. Totally different.
We have school visits. The youth services supervisor, Sue Ellen Zamansky, is working with I think it's Memorial, and they're going to have the first graders come over. We're going to give them a story and show them how they use the library.
Oh, that's great.
It's much earlier than high school now these days. But I still remember, though, the growing up, and it was the area when the library ladies were all older. Or of course, if you're 5,
Everybody's old. Come on, wake up.
But I mean, they all had the eyeglasses on chains around their neck and would go shh. But they were like the gods of the books
Yes.
that would help you,
The word.
you know, do things. And God help you if you got the mad.
Oh, yes.
Well, not much has changed.
Oh, now see, that's part of the college training.
And yeah, it's part of it. You know, instead of the book, we look at over the glasses with the iPad and go, am I giving you access to this database?
Oh, see, that's it.
Well,
The power of the library lady.
I think everybody's, like you said, people feel they're going to fade away, but like everything, we all need to adapt and change.
Well, I don't think it's not, in my belief, it's not going to go away, but the picture of a library is going to change. The
Well,
it's
library-
more of a community building than just a book building.
There are still people who feel that every part of that library should be quiet, and that's not going to happen. It's a living being. People
Right.
are asking questions constantly. The way you deliver information has changed from that time that you fondly recall. And, but it's good, it's healthy. It means we're vibrant, we're interacting with people, and people enjoy it. We are social animals. And if this is an outlet where people can come, feel comfortable, and find the information they think they may need or not need, it's what our job is being done well.
Well, so I think it's the bastion of the First Amendment, library is. That's the bastion of the First Amendment.
Well, the first thing the dictators do is burn books, so.
And that's the measure to me.
Or cut off the internet access today.
Right.
Like what happened to Assange.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. But I think that that's almost the image, this symbol of the First Amendment is the library. I believe that to be the case, and I think that it'll change in form. The view we have of a library will change, but the core of its services will be there. Just the way the services are delivered will change.
Within the network, we gave out 31,000 items out of our collection, which is about 130 items, to other libraries. They liked our collection, we borrowed it, and people used it. We took in about 18,000 items that we borrowed through the network. So it says a lot about Milford, is that we have a good collection, we have a very eclectic and broad collection, and people want to borrow it.
Okay. Now, I know you have a pile of things with you. So before we run out of time, are there things coming up at the library you want to tell us about?
Well, on the 25th of October,
Okay.
the young adult department is going to have a Halloween party. You don't have to come in costume, but it's going to be around 5:30, 8:30, and they're going to do the new Ghostbuster movies.
Okay.
And the ESL classes, we need people to help volunteer to do individual tutoring, and we work with the First Congregational Church on that. And there'll be 2 trainings in November, November 2nd and 9th. They're Wednesday nights. And they're going to be at 7 o'clock. And we'd like anybody who's interested in helping out, they can contact us at the Milford Town Library at milfordtownlibrary.org. And we'll get you organized and help you to attend the classes if you'd like to do that.
Okay. Anything else you want to promote?
Our Halloween party for the young ones, which is going to be on Tuesday next week, which is the 25th in the morning. And that one is really well attended. The little ones come by and they play the Monster Mash and they go all the way around the library. And they, in the costumes, and then they have cookies and juice in the basement, and they also get a story. We do a lot of storytelling in the library. And on November 5th, we're going to have a blues band come in. And it's called the Rusty Nails. And they are going to perform at 1 o'clock down in the community rooms.
Okay. Is that a weekend?
It's a weekend. It's on November 5th. That's a Saturday.
Okay.
So
No,
I think,
November 5th, the week before the election. The weekend before the election.
again, we are very lucky to have a library that we do. It's well supported. The staff is great. And everybody there works to make sure that everybody's experience is a good one.
I will tell you that I find your staff to be not just friendly, but very helpful and welcoming and always on top of things. I've seen times when there's been 2 or 3 people waiting and someone at the checkout desk and somebody comes running right up to ease the line, and I have nothing but good things to say about it.
Everybody wants to feel good about their job. And then I think the people at Milford want to extend it out to the patrons, so they do come back and they support us at town meeting.
Which is always important.
Yes.
Well, I think, I think really it's a very positive environment anyway. I mean, what better experience can you have than helping somebody with information and knowledge? The sharing of knowledge is always a very positive and fulfilling event when you share knowledge, and that's what the library does,
Okay,
which is great.
You've been the director for, is it 8 years now?
8 years and 8.5 years.
Wow.
I arrived July of 2008. And I guess I like it if I've been here one of the longest serving directors in Milford. But I've always had great support with everybody.
Now, wear your glasses.
I do have them, but I didn't want to be too much of a stereotype today.
Okay.
They're not half, they're full.
And no bun, right?
No.
You're gonna have the.
I never looked good in long hair, so it didn't work.
It's the bun. You gotta have the bun. It'll be a good librarian. You gotta have the bun and the glasses.
Well, things have changed, and I'm glad for the better in that respect, too. We're not seen as old biddies anymore. There's probably some days people think we're old biddies, but no.
Oh, no. Libraries have changed, and people are volunteering to work in the library too. A lot of people. Upton has tremendous level.
We have about 4 or 5 a week, and we also work with the Evergreen Center too. They help,
Oh,
and we
yep.
also work with alternatives.
Alternatives, yep.
So
From Whitensville, yeah.
Yeah.
Whitensville. So we help and support a wide range of services. And there's been some people from Evergreen or Whitensville that worked with us as volunteers and have gone to other jobs. They use us as a reference. Other people have used us as a reference.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Well,
super.
sounds good.
Yes.
Well, we're basically out of time. Sue, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me as always.
We'll have you
Thank
again
you.
in another year or so and
Yeah.
see what you're doing at the
This
library.
time though, you can turn your phone off.
I know. I didn't realize
It's a
I did
nice.
that.
I like the music.